Hello, everyone, welcome back to the World Conflict. Monitor, please subscribe and like my videos. Today. We'll dive deep into a dramatic and unfolding story. Lukashenko losing power fast. Belarus army defects, revolution unstoppable. This is more than a news headline. It's a geopolitical moment that could reshape Eastern Europe. Let's walk through all angles. The exterior, how this looks to the world. The interior, the dynamics inside Belarus and inside the regime. Performance, how events are unfolding in practice. Safety features, risks, defenses, levers of control. The unique selling points, what's new or decisive. Here, the price, what is being paid in real terms, and then our conclusion. From the exterior, this story reads like the script of a regime imploding. A leader long thought untouchable is suddenly challenged from within. For decades, Alexander Lukashenko has portrayed himself as the iron-fisted guarantor of stability in Belarus. He's the one who controlled the security forces, the media, and the levers of power. But now, the signals are changing. Parts of the Belarusian military are reported to defect. Security forces are showing cracks, and protests have resumed with boldness. Observers across Europe, Russia, and the Western world are watching nervously, trying to gauge whether a precedent is being set. Lukashenko's long-held image of invincibility is being punctured. To the outside world, Belarus looks like it's entering a moment of existential crisis. Allies will hesitate, adversaries will test boundaries, and foreign powers will jockey to influence the outcome. In that external spotlight, any sign of defection or fracture is magnified. The regime's narrative of unity must be maintained, or the optics spiral. Propaganda will seek to portray these defections as isolated or foreign, instigated conspiracies. Diplomats will publicly call for restraint, but behind closed doors, maneuvers will intensify. The facade of control is perhaps the one remaining tool the regime has. If that breaks, the regime itself may not survive a full collapse. Now, let's move to the interior. This is the core, what's happening inside Belarus, inside the regime's structure, inside the security services, among elites, and among the populace. Inside the ruling circle, tensions have long simmered. Lukashenko's long grip on power has created internal rivals, jealous subordinates, and factions that may feel marginalized. Some generals or mid-level commanders may sense that the regime's legitimacy is eroding, or that its survival is tied too tightly to external sponsors, chiefly Russia. Those individuals may start hedging their bets, quietly shifting loyalty, withholding orders, or making contact with opposition/defector networks. The internal messaging discipline that once held the state together is weakening. Inside the armed forces, the reported defections are a symptom of deeper malaise. Soldiers and officers may feel torn between duty and conscience, or just survival. They may see that the regime is increasingly isolated and believe that siding with the protest movement or defecting offers a safer future. Many may also distrust orders that require repression of their own people. Over time, small acts of insubordination, failing to enforce curfews, ignoring orders to fire on civilians, or refusing to engage can escalate. Once a few units break, others may follow to avoid isolation or being seen on the wrong side of history. In the security services, police, internal troops, intelligence, the pressure is even more acute. These forces are the regime's internal backbone, but when the optics shift, when defections in the military become public, internal security forces may begin to question their role. Agents may defect, leak documents, or withdraw support. The internal fear system arrests, loyalty checks, purges may increase, but that in turn breeds paranoia, reduces morale, and destabilizes further. Inside the broader population, years of repression, hardship, and economic grievance feed into this moment. People have witnessed cracked promises, shortages, unemployment, and the increasing cost of living. Many may feel fear, but also a suppressed hope. When they see the army or security forces wavering, that releases emboldened protests, momentum becomes a force, underground networks, opposition groups, and exiled dissidents may coordinate more boldly. The energy from ordinary citizens is what turns a crack into a rupture. Inside this interior dynamic also lies the role of external actors, Russia, the EU, regional neighbors. Russia will likely attempt to shore up Lukashenko, perhaps with financial aid, intelligence, or even covert military support. But Russia may also hedge. If it senses the regime is doomed, it might try to negotiate a managed transition. The EU and Western powers may try to amplify the pressure, offer asylum, support independent media, and apply sanctions. Those external levers feed into the interior tensions, creating choices for insiders about which side to bet on. Because the regime is fighting inside itself as much as against protesters, the interior is volatile, fluid, shifting. The balance can tip quickly, and right now it seems to be tilting. Turning to performance, how are events playing out on the ground? Are the reports real, coordinated, or exaggerated? Some units in the Belarusian military have publicly publicly refused to execute orders. Some officers have reportedly fled. The regime has responded with threats of force, mass arrests, and public appearances by Lukashenko in uniform to convey strength, but those moves may be more theatrical than effective. In cities like Minsk or provincial centers, protest activity has increased. Roadblocks, mass demonstrations, strikes, and civil disobedience are recurring. The regime has used curfews, communications blackouts, arrests of opposition leaders, media suppression, and violent crackdowns. In some areas, control is contested. Certain neighborhoods may be outside full regime control. Logistics, supply chains, communications, and governance in those areas may degrade. Also, performance is seen in timing and coordination. If defecting units can coordinate with protest leaders, hold strategic infrastructure, communications, transport, military bases, and isolate regime strongholds, their impact can be dramatic. The regime will try to disrupt coordination by jamming communication, targeting leaders, and sowing distrust, but performance lies in how well the defectors and opposition can overcome that. Another performance factor is the regime's ability to respond, deploying loyal units, using foreign mercenaries or external security forces, imposing martial law or emergency powers, or executing mass arrests. The regime still has resources and levers of coercion. If it can suppress the rebellion before it crosses a threshold, it may survive. So far, reports suggest that the regime is struggling to regain full control. Performance also includes propaganda, information warfare, and control of narrative. The regime tries to portray defections as illusions or foreign plots, while opposition voices circulate proof of fractures, leaks, and insider testimonies. The information war is crucial. If people believe the system is collapsing, more will jump ship. Let's discuss safety features. What defensive mechanisms does the regime still have, and what risks lie in its path? For the regime, the safety features are loyalist security forces and elite units still under command, ability to deploy foreign support, Russian assistance, media control, censorship, communication blackouts, arrests, intimidation, purges, show trials, strategic control of key sites, palaces, military bases, borders, use of emergency laws, martial law, curfew, surveillance, intelligence, internal policing, psychological operations, fear tactics, but all these safety features are weakening under pressure. Risks to the regime include slipping loyalty, units refusing orders, leaking intelligence, loss of control over infrastructure, communications, power, transport, international isolation, sanctions, financial collapse, fragmentation of regime, factions, escalation of popular revolt or insurgency, external interference or proxy involvement, leadership vacuum if key figures flee or are eliminated escalation into armed conflict domestically, so the regime is balancing multiple constraints. It must use force selectively, or it may backfire. It must maintain narrative control. It must avoid wholly alienating units so that defections multiply. Next, what are the unique selling points of this moment? What makes this situation especially pivotal or different from past attempts? First, the defection of the army itself is rare. In many authoritarian systems, the military is a core bulwark. If portions of it defect, that's a dramatic turning point. This shifts the story from protest to possible regime change. Second, the interior pressure is coming from within. Insiders are acting, not just external opposition. That makes the threat existential to the regime. Third, the timing. Belarus sits next to Ukraine, borders with NATO states, is geopolitically critical to Russia. Any collapse or change will ripple across the region. Fourth, modern communications, social media, and networks mean that leaks, coordination, and exposure can travel fast. The regime's control over narrative is weaker than in earlier decades. Fifth, international context. Russia's own war in Ukraine has strained its capacity and legitimacy. The West is watching for cracks in the Russian sphere. Belarus is no longer isolated. The world expects volatility. Sixth, the regime is more dependent on external patrons, Russia, than ever. That dependence limits its independence and gives leverage to outside actors. Seventh, the protest networks have grown more sophisticated, resilient, underground, and experienced. They can exploit fractures more efficiently, so this moment is a convergence of internal rot, external pressure, high stakes, and amplified communication. Now, what is the price, the costs being paid, sacrifices made, and what the stakes are? For the regime, the price is potentially its very existence. If it loses legitimacy or control, it may face ouster, exile, or worse. Key figures risk imprisonment, death, or flight. The state apparatus itself may collapse or realign. Economically, Belarus is already under sanctions and facing resource scarcity. A collapse could lead to hyperinflation, shortages, currency collapse, foreign debt default, and chaos. Socially, the people suffer: arrests, repression, violence, civilian casualties, displacement, possible civil war or insurgency. Many may flee or suffer human rights abuses. For defectors or insiders, the price is high. Loyalty shifts are treasonous under the regime, punishable by death or disappearance. Their families may be targeted. For opposition groups, the price is risk of suppression, infiltration, loss of leadership, arrest, or worse. Internationally, the price is instability on Belarus's borders, refugee flows, regional security threats, possibility of foreign intervention, and escalation. In sum, this is a high-stakes wager for everyone involved. Lastly, the conclusion: we are witnessing a turning point. Lukashenko's regime, long thought immutable, now stares at fragility from within. The army's defection is the crack in the foundation. This is not just about protests, it's about whether the state itself can hold. The interior dynamics suggest that the balance is shifting. The regime's performance is reactive, slower, and strained. Its safety features are fraying under pressure. And the unique convergence of factors: insurgent insiders, geopolitical risk, networked opposition, dependence on Russia, make this moment especially volatile. If the defecting forces and opposition can coordinate, capture key infrastructure, maintain momentum, and avoid fragmentation, then Lukashenko's grip may snap, but the path is dangerous. The regime still retains lethal tools: security forces, foreign backing, censorship, and control over lifelines. The outcome is uncertain. One final word: in moments like this, fortune favors those who can act decisively, cohesively, and swiftly. The regime that can adapt will crumble. Belarus may be entering a revolution or a drawn-out civil conflict. The ripple effects will be felt far beyond Minsk. That's the full breakdown.